Well, the hoary old chestnut of divestment of primary schools in particular, but all schools away from religious bodies, is heating up. Educate Together this morning has called on any new government to speed up the process. You'll recall that Rory Quinn promised a lot, but not a lot was achieved. The multi-denominational school patron body wants €10 million ring-fenced to encourage divestment and wants a commitment included in a programme for government. Well, what is the story on the ground? Well, we sent our own reporter, Kieran Cuddihy, to go out and find out what is happening. Kieran, what exactly do Educate Together want?
They want these commitments, as you mentioned. They want a specific line inserted in the programme for government, €10 million ring fence to facilitate divestment, and they want a commitment to that 300 national schools will be divested during the lifetime of whatever the next government is, and 30 secondary schools. So a huge pick-up in the pace of change that would be, because you mentioned how little had been delivered over the last 4 years. Just 8 schools have been divested around the country, which means that 95% of national schools remain under control of religious bodies, obviously most of them the Catholic Church. So this level of control over the education system is what Educate Together are calling on the government, any new government, to address. And Jerry McKevitt, he works with Educate Together. He's their Regional Development Officer for North Leinster, and I spoke to him about this yesterday.
What we really need is the divestment process, which started, I think, in 2011, 2012, to move forward, and it hasn't really moved forward very far. There have been some divestments, but at this stage we have an awful lot of anxious parents who are desperately looking for equality-based education, and it's not available to them. Religion hasn't got the place now with a lot of parents that it had before, and parents don't want their children to be stigmatised for not attending religious services, and they want to be able to express themselves, and they want their children to be able to express themselves in schools.
You've been speaking to parents in an area where they've been fighting for divestment. Where's that? In
Terranure, Dublin 6. This is an area that had been earmarked as needing divestment. There was a need for it. There was a demand, and that was almost 4 years ago now, after the survey on pluralism and patronage. So one of the parents who had expressed an interest in a divested school there was Nicola Murphy. She still lives there in the main road in Terranure, and I was chatting to her as well yesterday. Her son applied to 9 schools last year. He's a school-going age. Didn't get into a single school simply because he wasn't baptised.
It's very difficult for us as parents. I mean, we want to be given the freedom to bring up our children the way we want to, and we would prefer for our children to make their mind up about religion when they're older. And the schools are all, they all have good reputations, and they're all very good schools, but they don't have the resources to watch children who are not taking part in sacraments. So unless you can remove your child yourself during the school day for the length of time they're doing religious instruction, our children are going to sit there and they're going to absorb that information, and they listen to their teacher, and they're going to like their teacher, and it's going to be confusing for them if they're getting conflicting messages at home and in school. There's no real way for you to tell a 4-year-old, for those 30 minutes of a day, don't listen to your teacher, and then for the rest of the school day, you need to pay attention to your lessons.
I'm sure there are divided views on this amongst parents. How many parents are campaigning for a school in that area?
Yeah, well, the results of the survey on pluralism and patronage, they did reveal in a lot of areas people were very happy with the schools their children were in. But say here in Terranure and Dublin 6, there's been expressions of interest for 1,000 children. So even if the school was open tomorrow, there's every chance that it'll be oversubscribed on day one. And I did speak to some of the other parents who were involved and who have expressed interest. Emma Granger, she also lives in the catchment area with her husband and their daughter Freya, who's 3. Freya's going to start school in September 2017, and if it's still only religious schools there, they say they're going to have to pay for her to go to a private school. That's what they're willing to do. Now, they said that's not a long-term option because they can't afford it. So Emma's understandably frustrated, especially given the fact that she wasn't even pregnant with Freya when their area was earmarked for school divestment.
I mean, I remember the forum on patronage and pluralism, and I didn't have a child, I wasn't pregnant, but I was delighted to see that something was happening, and it really felt like there was a bit of a groundswell, something was going to change. When I saw that what Rory Quinn did happening in the survey for parents and everything, I really thought, this is great, this is going to change, it'll be fine in 5 or 10 years' time. And it doesn't seem that way. Every so often there is a bit of a surge, but nothing has. It's still the same, and I don't know, is it just going to be buried again and nothing will happen?
Yes, Emma Granger there in Terranure. Now, I should say, actually, I was speaking to the Archdiocese, the Dublin Archdiocese and the Department of Education about this. They say there is a vacant building in the area that was caused when two schools, Catholic schools, merged, and they're in advanced talks, and they are actually very hopeful that in that area, at least, by this September, they will have a new school. So that'll be a great result there for Nicola and Emma and the other parents if that happens. But that's scant consolation for people, other parents I spoke to in Kells in County Meath or down in Killarney in County Kerry, where they thought they'd have a school a few years ago by now, and still nothing has happened. So that's why Educate Together want this express commitment. But when I spoke to Jerry McKevitt from Educate Together, again, I asked him, how do they expect that commitment to even be met, given how slow the pace of change has been until now?
Even though the divestment process, the state is involved, the churches are involved, other patrons are involved, and Educate Together is involved, we've never sat down with any other patrons or with the state. There's never been a round table discussion about these issues. And maybe that would be something that could happen, that all stakeholders could come together and address the problem. Everything is very compartmentalised. The state deals with patrons and then the state deals with us. We've never all sat down together in the same room and spoken about this. And that's a problem.
That was Jerry McKevitt of Educate Together. Obviously a matter for the in-tray of the new Minister for Education. Thank you for that report, Kieran. We'll be back in a moment.
Don't hold back. Text Newstalk on 53106.
You're in business.